Hello, and welcome to another British Cartographic Society Teatime Talk. I'm Chris Tributis, the Teatime Talk coordinator and host of today's talk. Today we start a new series of talks titled Mapping My World, where we will have speakers from across the world talking about mapping in their particular country. We hope this will give everyone watching an interesting insight into mapping across the globe. Today's Mapping My World will look at Ghana. We have the pleasure of hearing from Jones Ofori-Boadu in the Lands Commission in Ghana. As usual, if you could please put your questions in the chat, we will come to these at the end of the talk. But for now, I'd like to hand us over to Jones, where he can tell us about the mapping of Ghana.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good evening to everyone. Let me try to share my screen. So good evening once again to everybody. And my name is Jones Ofori-Boadu from the Lands Commission of Ghana. I'm the Deputy Executive Secretary. So my topic for today is to look at the status of national mapping in Ghana. And for my outline, I will be looking at the background. And then we'll look at some legacy map projects. And then under that, we'll look at pre-independence maps. Ghana got independence in 1957. So we'll look at some pre-independence maps. And then we'll look at the national topographical mapping, which happened somewhere in 1972. We'll look at the coastal mapping. We'll look at the projects under the Land Administration Project 1 and 2. And then we will conclude. So I would say that man has always been curious about positioning on Earth, since I believe most of you are mappers. And the history of mapping is a rich tapestry that spans thousands of years, reflecting the human drive to understand and navigate the world. From the ancient Greek maps, which dates like the 5th to the 6th century, and the medieval maps, which are like the 13th to the 16th century, to the present day digital interactive maps, the need to keep up-to-date maps is evident. The need for a country to have up-to-date maps in the 21st century cannot be overemphasized. National mapping forms the basis for monitoring of territorial boundaries, resource management, infrastructure development, national security, just to mention a few. And Ghana, for that matter, has a long history of mapping, which dates back into the colonial days when we used to be called the Gold Coast under Governor Gajesberg. So I would take you through a few of the pre-colonial maps. So for this particular one, it's a map of the Gold Coast and inland countries between and beyond the Pra and Volta rivers by the Basel missionaries on the Gold Coast, which was published by the missions Buchanlong Basel in 1885. So the sources from the Basel missions. And this spans between two prominent rivers in Ghana, which covers the gold mining areas of the country. This is also a map in 1907, which is a map of the Chebi area of under the Gold Coast. So these were areas that were mining areas which had gold mines in them. And this one is a geological map of the Gold Coast, of the southern part of Ghana, showing the position of gold mines and prospects. So there are several gold mines within the southern part of Ghana, and these are shown in the geological map of the Gold Coast. And this is a map of the Christiansborg area. And the Christiansborg area was the seat of government during Guggisberg's time. And so this is a map that covers that area, which defines the seat of government, dated 1883. So those were some of the pre-colonial maps. Now, we had a national topographic mapping exercise, which was done in 1972. And this mapping covered the entire country. And so it commenced in 1972, and map compilation was completed in 1974. This was at a scale of 1 in 50,000. There were topographic map series covering the entire country, and it was made up of 251 map sheets. In 1993, a project, so these were hard copy maps, but in 1993, a project was designed, which was called the Ghana Environmental Resource Mapping Project, which was funded by the World Bank. And under that project, all these 251 map sheets were digitized, and the various features were classified in layers. So you could have the road layer, the hydro layer, the building layer, the contours or the hypso layer, and all these were in separate layers as they were digitized. We used the Akinfo software at that time to do those the digitization. And so currently, as we speak, we have all these maps in the digital format with the various layers. This is an example of one topo sheet from that series of mapping in 1972. Now, in 2002, we had the coastal mapping of the country. So there was a mapping done that spanned the entire coast of the country under the auspices of the Ministry of Tourism. So this map mapped 9 kilometers inland, and then spanned from the easternmost town of Aflao to the westernmost town of Half Assini. And the approximate area of coverage was 5,000 square kilometers at a scale of 1 in 10,000. And so we have these maps still available. And as you can see in the index map that I have shown, if you look along the coast, so that is those map sheets that were created during 2002 for the coastal line, 9 kilometers inland. Then in 2008, there was the Land Administration Project Phase 1, which looked at orthophoto mapping of selected towns across the country. So the 2008 selected towns are shaded in green. So all the areas on the index that are shaded in green were done in 2008. And these are selected towns and cities. A total of about 64 major towns were mapped at a scale of 1 in 2,500. And an amalgamated approximate area of 15,000 square kilometers was mapped under the project. And then there was a phase 2 of the project, and the phase 2 also looked at an approximate area of 25,000 square kilometers. And that was made up of 12,000 square kilometers for the southern sector. Sorry, and 13,000 square kilometers for the northern sector. And that is shaded in pink. So all the blocks in pink are the lab phase 2 mapping towns and cities. So that was about 23 major towns that were mapped. And then also, if you can see my cursor, this area was marked with LiDAR, which is about 4,200 square kilometers. We use LiDAR to map that area because there was an irrigation project going to happen there under the Ghana agricultural project. So they requested for LiDAR to be mapped for that area so they can use it to design the irrigation canals. Now, the Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Project, which started somewhere in 2019, was also a project funded by the World Bank to address the flooding issues in the city of Accra under the auspices of the Ministry of Works and Housing. So the project objectives were to strengthen flood and solid waste management and the provision of public services to targeted flood-prone communities in the Odo River Basin within the Greater Accra area. So the Odo River Basin is a corridor of channel of water that flows from the mountains and runs all the way through Accra into the sea. And it is an area that is prone to flooding every year. Yeah. And then the other objective was to model the flood-prone corridor to provide an engineering solution to the perennial flooding issues in Accra. So the main tasks of the project, among others, included LiDAR mapping and orthophoto mapping. So if you look at the map attached, the outline is the area that was mapped under the Garrett project. So this area is approximately about 8,980 square kilometers, which was split into 2 sections. We had the built-up area and then the rural area. So the built-up area was 2,290 square kilometers, and the orthophotos were flown at 5 centimeter ground sample distance, and the LiDAR at 6 points per meter square point density for the built-up areas. And then for the rural and open areas, the orthophotos were at 10 centimeter GSD, and the LiDAR was at 4 points per meter square for those areas, with a total acreage of 6,690 square kilometers. So like I said, it started somewhere in 2019 and was supposed to finish in 2020, but because of COVID, it wasn't finished until 2022. And the flying also had some issues with weather. But currently is finished, and we have the data to cover the area as shown in the map attached. So looking at the future, this is what we intend to do as a country. So we want to provide orthophoto and LiDAR mapping to cover the entire country. And we're looking at 25 centimeters ground sample distance and 0.5 points per meter square LiDAR coverage point density for the entire country. Ghana is approximately 239,000 square kilometers. So that will cover the entire country, and then we will zero in on 15,000 square kilometers at 10 centimeter GSD and 4 points per meter square LiDAR coverage. And these will cover the regional capitals. Currently, Ghana has 16 regional capitals. So all these regional capitals will be covered at 10 centimeter GSD. And then we will also select some vibrant commercial towns to be part of this 15,000 square kilometers. We are also going to produce large-scale maps at 1 in 2,500 scale for enhanced land administration and systematic title registration. So we're doing the 15,000 square kilometers basically because of the land administration and systematic title registration. Currently, Ghana is covered by title registration only in Accra, and we want to extend it to all the other regional capitals. So based on the mapping that we'll do, we'll use those maps to do the title registration plans for systematic titling. And this, we expect this project to start in 2024, that's this year. We are far advanced in discussions on this project. So just to give a brief overview of the project. So the project has several components. The first component is, as I talked about earlier, improved maps and spatial data. So we'll be looking at providing up-to-date maps to cover the entire country. And then we'll be also looking at establishing a geodetic reference network made up of coarse continuous operating reference stations across the country. And then we'll be looking at developing transformation parameters, which would switch us between the existing datum and then the new datum that we will be developing. So for the core stations, we're looking at approximately about 15 stations across the country. We'll also be looking at digital transformation of the Lands Commission, and by this, we would want to digitize all our legacy data and all the legacy records, put them into a digital format, and then develop software that would automate the business processes of the Lands Commission, so that we'll be able to have an end-to-end solution of application processing as and when applicants come to seek the services of the Lands Commission. Currently, most of our data are manual, they are in papers and hard copy maps, and we intend to convert all this into a digital environment. We also want to embark on a decentralization of our services. So we are currently located in all the 16 regions. We have offices in all the 16 regions, but we want to bring our services closer to our clients, so they don't have to travel from the districts to the to the regional capital. So we want to also establish district offices and bring it closer to the applicants. In addition to that, we are also introducing online services so that applicants can access our service online, irrespective of where they are. So they don't really have to travel to Accra or to any of the regional capitals to access our service. I talked about systematic titling and recording, and then also we're looking at creation of a national cadastre. Currently, we don't have a national cadastre. We don't have a comprehensive database of ownership of parcels within the country. And so we want to establish that through the systematic titling process and catalog all the attribute data related to every parcel within the country. So we can have that information at hand. Obviously, we'll also be looking at capacity building within the Lands Commission to build the capacity of the staff so they can embrace some of these new trends that we're bringing across. As you can understand, for people who have worked with the manual process and manual documents for a long time, it wouldn't be very easy for them to convert to the digital. And so we're going through the change management process and the transformation process so that our staff can get acquainted with a new way of doing things, so we don't have the challenges that will come with staff resistance when we roll out the activities. We are also going to look at a national spatial data infrastructure. We would want to create an NSDI for the country so that we can share data with other government organizations. Currently, most government organizations are collecting their own data in silos, and we want to guard against that. So with the NSDI, we should be able to regulate the collection of data. So we collect once and then is used by many organizations, both government and private organizations. And then of course, we'll have a project management unit which would manage the entire project as we move along. So I want to conclude, and in conclusion, I would say that Ghana's track record of keeping up to date maps of its territorial boundary and interest hasn't been that great. While the proposed mapping component under the land reform project seeks to provide a short-term remedy, there's an urgent need to devise a more sustainable approach to continuously mapping the country and publishing up-to-date maps. This may require some legislation. We have some legislation in place, and may also require adequate funding, which most of the time is lacking. So thank you very much. That brings me to the end of my presentation for today. Thank you very much, and I hand over back to the coordinator.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting talk, and quite a bit of insight into how mapping is done in Ghana. So yes, I have to say, yes. So we're just move on to we're just going to move on to the Q&A session now. So if anyone has any questions from the talk, we'll happily work through them. We'll happily work through them right now. So it's 1 second. Okay. So so just look at the questions at the moment. We've got the first question from Jim. He's from the Ordnance Survey actually in the UK. So we've got it from our national mapping. It's what is the biggest challenge that was faced when digitizing the 1 to 50,000 series mapping in the past? You appear to be on mute. There we go.
Okay, so all right, the digitization of the 1 in 50,000 series, yes, that was a huge challenge. In 1993, you can understand that Ghana had not had any experience in digitization. We didn't have any experience in digital mapping, and we didn't even have any experience in any mapping software, to use for the digitization. So what we did was to engage a firm in Canada, Terra Surveys. So we engaged Terra Surveys, and what Terra Surveys did was to move a number of our staff, I think about 12 of our staff, to Canada for 6 months training, on-the-job training. So they went with the data, the hard copy data, to Canada, and then we're working on it with the team in Canada to get us, trained, and also, first of all, trained on the software, which is Akinfo. And if you remember Akinfo, you have to keep all these commands in memory, to be able to execute what you wanted to do. And so these guys were trained in it, and it actually went very well. So after the 6 months, they did a portion of the data, a portion of the map sheets. They came back to Ghana, and on our own, we were able to do the rest of the map sheets. So the major challenge was our interaction with the software and how to execute the digitization through the software. But after the training, it was much easier for our team to be able to do it, and they did an excellent job after they came back to Ghana to finish the whole process.
Yes, it's that learning process at the very beginning of when everyone started developing. Everyone the transition from hand drawn maps to the digital was I think that's a challenge that we've all progressed through, and I think we've learned a lot of lessons in that time.
Yes.
I've just got to ask the question: how large is the map? Or the mapping organization? How large is your organization in Ghana? What do you have in terms of people working on mapping? Out of curiosity.
Yes. So the Lands Commission. Let me give a brief background of the Lands Commission. So the Lands Commission is made up of 4 divisions. Okay, so we have the Survey Mapping Division, which is entirely in charge of maps, as the name depicts. So the mapping falls under the Survey Mapping Division. And then we have the Public Investor Land Management Division, which deals with management of government lands. And then we have the Land Valuation Division, which deals with valuation of properties, compensation, rating valuation for the district assemblies for their tax calculations and stuff like that. And then the 4th division is the Land Registration Division, which deals with land title registration. And like I said, title registration is only in Accra. So the Land Registration Division works for title registration within Accra. The rest of the country falls under deeds registration. So talking about the mapping, staff that are responsible for mapping, that is only the Survey and Mapping Division. We have a total strength of about 500 staff for the Survey and Mapping Division. across the country for all the 16 regions.
Okay. Yes. I've just seen a follow-up from Jim where he was highlighting the fact that the software in the 1990s and computing power was interesting. So I think that's coming from the UK as well. That's a universal challenge for us all. It's that time frame. So I've got a number of other interesting questions. So we've got one. Here's one question. I have a number of commercially produced maps of Ghana from the 1950s and 60s, produced by the Survey of Ghana. In general, they look of reasonably high standard. Did any of these cartographic or survey work from these carry forward into the 1972 to 74 maps, or did they start with a clean sheet?
Yes, yeah, we had some earlier maps as he's saying, but the 1972 maps were started on a clean sheet, so they flew the entire country, and then came up with new map sheets across the country. And like I said, the compilation took about 2 years. So by the time it came out in 1974, I'm sure it was already outdated, but that is what we had. So, and we've had that all these years up to today. We haven't really had the opportunity to fly the entire country at a go. So what we've done under the various projects is to do pockets of areas of mapping, 15,000, 25,000, just to update small areas, basically due to lack of funding.
No, I can appreciate that. Trying to map an entire country every few years is going to be quite a pricey and quite a large task. So it's genuinely interested to hear that one there. So we've got from another question we've had is delighted to see and hear you again, Jones, and to hear of developments in Ghana. It brings back many happy memories of my time working with you and LC. Best wishes to you in the future plans, and also tonight at 8 p.m. in the Africa Cup of Nations against Egypt.
Yes. That's true. I can't wait to view that one. Yes.
We'll let you explode people. We'll hopefully let you get away before then. Then we've got another question. It's great to hear about your national mapping, Jones. What plans do you have for sustainable maintenance of the mapping which will be created in the land reform project?
Yes. Under the land reform project, we want to once again map the entire country. So we are looking at mapping the entire country at 25 centimeter GSD and do some LiDAR mapping as well. And then we would want to also select these pockets of regional capitals and then some vibrant economic areas and map them at a much accuracy that's 10 centimeter GSD. Now, after we've done that, we want to now propose that every year we do some updating of the map so that we can always have up-to-date maps. So these are the proposals that we have in the land reform project. As compared to the previous times where we map small pockets of areas and we leave it out for a long time, it gets outdated, and then you have to now go and redo everything. We're looking at also using drones to map small pockets of areas if it becomes necessary to maybe do some rezoning or some redevelopment of certain areas of the cities and towns. We could use drones after we've gotten the base maps done. Then we could use some drones to also do some updating of the data. So those are the plans that we have, after we've done the big bank mapping, to also keep the maps up to date for especially the economic areas.
Okay, that's very interesting, and nice to see the interesting use of drones in this in maintaining the mapping. That's a much cheaper way than setting up aircraft on a regular basis too. When you're just doing the updating of each of those specific areas. Okay, right. So, and here's another question. Recognizing that the major driver for future mapping is for cadastral land ownership purposes at 1 to 25, 1 to 2,500 scale, are you anticipating updating the 1 to 50,000 over the same area?
Yes. So we will be updating the 1 in 50,000, but this time around we're bringing it to a bigger scale of 1 in 25,000 for those areas, and then for the bigger towns we're looking at 1 in 2,500. So our topographic maps, we want to now drop it to 1 in 25,000 instead of the 1 in 50,000 that we had. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. Very useful.
That will cover the same area that the 1 in 50,000 previously covered.
Okay, no, that's very interesting here. Okay, next question is, brilliant to hear about all the national mapping projects in Ghana. Are there future hydrographic charts for Ghana's maritime space as well? Any future plans for the chart for hydrographic charts?
Yes, that's an interesting one. We used to have hydrographic charts over the years, and we used to have 2 tide gauges in 2 ports that we have, 2 big ports that we have. So we have a port at Tema. We had 1 tide gauge there. Over the years, which we were observing judiciously, and then we had another tide gauge in the western part of the country in Takoradi, which we were also observing judiciously. But unfortunately, these tide gauges were overtaken by the port expansion. And so somewhere in the 2000s, the tide gauges were rendered, they were not operating anymore because the port had to expand and they had to move where the tide gauges were. So we couldn't produce those hydrographic charts anymore. But currently, we have liaised with the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, and they have acquired digital hydrographic equipment for the tide gauge measurements, and has been installed at the ports, at both ports again. But those are very recent. So I expect that we should be getting back to coming up with a hydrographic charts again. Unfortunately, we never had hydrographic units in the Lands Commission, or for that matter, the Survey and Mapping Division. We have now created one. We currently have a staff who we've sponsored to University College of London to do hydrography at the master's level. He's currently there. We want him to come back and then man the hydrography unit because we really don't have a lot of expertise in that. So we had to sponsor him to go and learn and then come, and then we will create that unit so that we can start propagating the data for the hydrographic charts.
Okay, that seems like you've got plans for the future. That's good to hear and to see that
Yes.
things are hopefully progressing to. So that's,
yes.
I think that's answered the question quite nicely there. One more question we have is, can you explain the role of licensed surveyors in Ghana and how they interface with the Land Commission?
Okay, thank you very much. So licensed surveyors are basically licensed by the Lands Commission. So the license allows them to practice strictly cadastral surveying. So the license is basically for cadastral surveying. All other surveys can be done without the license. And so if you want to do engineering survey, you want to do topographic survey, you want to do hydrographic survey, you can go ahead and do it without the license. But if you want to do cadastral surveying, which will come through the Lands Commission for processing of instruments for registration, then you have to be a licensed surveyor. So the licensed surveyors, like I said, are licensed by the Lands Commission, and it is by law. So every year they have to come and get accredited so that they can practice. We have a database of all the accredited licensed surveyors, and the law says that by the 15th of January every year, they have to report to the Lands Commission and show themselves physically to the officer that they are in a good state to practice for the ensuing year. And then they pay the requisite fees, and then they will be allowed to practice. Now, whenever they do a cadastral survey, our cadastral plans are such that we have two signatures on the site plan. So when the licensed surveyor does a cadastral survey from an applicant, he signs the site plan, and then it comes through the quality control process at the Lands Commission. We pass it through the check-in process, and then after we have approved the field records and then also the plan that he has produced, the Director of Surveys or his representative will also endorse the plan as approved. So whatever they do has to come through the Lands Commission and be approved by the Director of the Survey and Mapping Division. So that is the relationship we have with the licensed surveyors. And they are regulated by us. Ethics of the profession, everything is regulated. If a licensed surveyor misbehaves, the Lands Commission has a right to discipline that licensed surveyor. We have a right to withdraw their license when they misbehave. So that is the kind of relationship we have with the licensed surveyors.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think that's oh, we have one more question that's just this coming. Well, just a thank you. It's a we have this is from the president of the British Cartographic Society. It's Jones. Excellent overview, and wish you well with the new project. It is a huge challenge. Thank you from all of us at the BCS for doing this first talk in Mapping My World series. It really has set us up for an interesting set of presentations throughout the year. So I have to agree with my sentiments as well, which I was going to be giving very shortly.
Thank you so much, and we are grateful for the opportunity too.
you very much. Okay, so I'll just wind this up now, and I want to say again, as Seppi has just said, thank you very much to yourself for speaking to us and giving this interesting insight into Ghana and mapping the past and into the future. I want to thank our audience for joining us, and I hope you've all enjoyed hearing the first of this series. And I hope that everyone wishes to join us in the future for our further talks. So for tonight, I want to say thank you and goodbye.